Great, thank you, Tim. So as Tim mentioned, LBT Innovations is kind of focused in the space of clinical microbiology, and it's a large growing market. And we've developed an AI-based machine vision capability to provide some really disruptive automation to this market segment. The next slide talks through the typical disclaimers that we need to provide as a listed company. But look, let me talk through what's clinical microbiology and what does this kind of $4 billion market opportunity kind of mean. People are be aware of virology at the moment with COVID, and so that's a department within a lot of these busy labs all around the world. Well, clinical microbiology is another function or another discipline that sits within these labs, and it's a discipline that's growing about 6.5% per annum, and it's an area that has not had a lot of disruption. The UTI or urinary tract infection is probably a well-known infectious disease state that people might be familiar with. So that's an example, if you like, of when a urine specimen goes to a lab and it goes into the clinical microbiology department to kind of make that a little bit real to people. Next slide kind of talks through some of the challenges facing these labs globally. And so you'll see a picture of a petri dish on the screen. The petri dish was developed in the late 1800s, and still today, in every lab all around the world, a petri dish is looked at manually and interpreted manually by a scientist, a microbiologist. So there is no automation other than the scientist reading the plate, and you know, it's really ripe for automation. What we also see is a situation where we don't have enough microbiologists coming through the university system, and so there's a data point there. I think it's about 7% actually of jobs in the US at any one time are vacant. So microbiologists are in short supply. We have a growing market opportunity in terms of the number of petri dishes going through this workflow. About 2 billion of these plates go through labs all around the world every single year. So next slide kind of outlines the technology that we've identified to disrupt what is a completely manual process that occurs, like I said, in all labs all around the world. And we call it the APAS Independence, the automated plate assessment system. And there is no other technology that automates culture plate reading. We are the first and the only technology that does this. And it's a platform that we've been developing for a long period of time. So obviously being in the healthcare space and needing to demonstrate the accuracy and the performance is really, really important. And we've gone through all of that over a long period of time. Very, very, very much a de-risked value proposition to potential investors and shareholders when you look at what we've achieved so far. So we've had to do that by demonstrating the technology works through 10,000 patient global clinical trials, multi-center trials. And the key reason why we needed to do this is because we needed to demonstrate that we could train an algorithm, have an algorithm interpret a plate at least as accurately as that of a scientist. And so we've been successful in demonstrating that capability. And we pioneered the de novo application for the US FDA and still remain the only product that has US FDA clearance. We have a portfolio of patents that cover the core technology. This is a technology that is very, very difficult to replicate and to copy. And so a lot of the IP is not only just in the technology development in its own right, but also the processes that we've been able to establish internally and to get it through the regulators. Once again, we lead the way in this regard. And so the instrument is the final product that we sell and that we sell to labs. And the instrument kind of reviews these petri dishes about 3 times faster than a scientist. Next slide, please. And we've made some really good headwinds in terms of our commercialization efforts. So, you know, we've sold instruments. We've sold 6 instruments globally to date as part of an early commercialization effort. We've appointed channel partners, really established ones. Beckman Coulter, I'll talk about them a little bit later on. But we've done all of that heavy lifting in terms of the market access. We've got through the regulatory barriers, so we can actively sell in Europe, in the US, and in Australia. And we've appointed key opinion leaders to really be advocates for our technology in each of those markets. And so all of that I guess groundwork has been established. Next slide talks around some of the technology adoption and the process that we've gone through. And look, I think with all technology, not everyone wants to be the first one to trial it. And so the importance of having key innovators, and there's some pictures of our key opinion leaders in the US and in Germany are pictured on the screen there. And what we're doing now is moving through that development curve of people. And so moving into that early adopter, and then we'll get into that kind of that majority in the time to come. Next slide. But we've been really proud with some recent highlights, especially during a time of COVID where travel has been impossible, quite frankly. Over the last year and a half, we haven't been able to travel globally at all. And when you think of our global markets, well, the big global markets that we operate in are outside of Australia. And so we've launched in the US, in Germany, in France, and the UK. And recently, we've sold 2 instruments to the Health Services Laboratory in London. So this is a state-of-the-art facility. It's a sonic lab, and they purchased the 2 instruments for their high screening urine and MRSA processing. What's really what we're very proud with that particular sale is that we did it all completely remotely. So we appointed a global service organization. We did all of that training remotely. We shipped the instrument to London, and they installed it for us within a day. It's very much plug and play. And we did the training on the technology with the customer all remotely. So what it's done, it's really set a blueprint from a service delivery capability perspective in a way that's a really positive thing in light of COVID. Next slide. And looking at that market opportunity, the way that we segment our customers is based on the number of patient plates that they get. So not all labs are the same. You've got to have small, medium, and larger style of labs. And really our target segments in that kind of medium to large lab. And we've identified that global market opportunity is 13,000 labs. But if we break that down, just looking at the market opportunity for those countries that we're actively in country commercializing at the moment, it's a bit over 2,000 labs. And so the kind of diagram on the right there just gives a bit of an idea of what the dollar market opportunity looks like once we get to that kind of 20 to 30% market penetration. So it is a big and meaningful sales opportunity for us. Next slide. And we're not done there. So you kind of think, well, we've got the physical instrument, we've got a number of these analysis modules, which is the software. This is the unique AI interpretive software. We've developed those for urine and MRSA, and we're rolling those out. But we can put more apps, we can develop more automation and put it on the instrument that's already at play. And one really, really exciting opportunity that we've got with us at the moment is antimicrobial resistance. And this is the picture on the top right hand of the screen. This is a disc diffusion method, and what this is looking to do is measure the zone of inhibition, which is looking at essentially the bacteria and how it is resistant to the antibiotic. And so those little circles or those little discs are the antibiotics, and the zone of inhibition around that is the resistance to that antibiotic. That's a really important part of the workflow, because it forms the basis of a drug recommendation to treat the specific infection for the patient. So kind of like that personalized medicine application there. And so we have a grant, and we're through development. We'll have an early version of this at a customer at the end of this year. So a really exciting opportunity that only extends the application for APAS with our customer base. The other really exciting thing is looking at early reading. And so when these specimens are put onto a petri dish, they're incubated, and they're incubated for 18 and up to 30 hours. Well, now that we're digitally imaging these culture plates, which hasn't been done before, right? So, we're pioneers in this area. And because we've got an algorithm that can identify bacteria and colony growth, we're looking at ways to bring that incubation time in. So rather than the 30 hours or the 18 hours, let's do it in half that time. So not only are we automating something that is very, very manual, we're able to then reduce the turnaround time and get that patient result back quicker. And so that's a really exciting new technology development that's on our roadmap. Next slide. And look, we capitalized the company last year and raised $8.4 million with just under $10 million in the bank at the end of June. So we've got reasonable runway moving into this next period of time. Next slide. So kind of wrapping it all up, I kind of said here, there's no better time to be in the diagnostic space. And, you know, I think one of the things out of COVID is it's identified the need for automation in these busy labs. Every lab all around the world right now is just blown off their feet in terms of COVID testing. Automation will solve that issue. And this is what our technology does. APAS independence has been de-risked. We've got the regulatory clearances. We've established key opinion leaders. And I think what most investors who have followed the story are really looking forward to is us stitching up a US distributor that we've said to the market will happen by the end of this quarter. And I'm well aware that's about 3 weeks away. So, and we remain on track to do that. So a really exciting opportunity to identify a channel partner in our single largest market. And I know that all of our current shareholders are very enthusiastic for us to make that announcement. So I'll pause there and open up to some questions, Tim.
Thanks, Brent. It saves me asking that question. Can you give me some feedback from the buyers? There's a question here. What sort of efficiency gains are they seeing it? What does the staff feel about it?
Yeah, so remember, we're actually not in the business of putting the discipline of microbiologists out of work. What we're doing is automating one part of their workflow. There are other parts of the workflow that are really reliant on the microbiologist. So what we're doing is that we're effectively triaging or removing all of those negative plates out of the workflow. So it's a very boring, mundane task, to be kind of candid around it. And we still need those microbiologists to do the identification and antibiotic susceptibility testing for those plates that are positive. So the microbiologist remains an important role within the lab. And so what we found is that when we put the instrument into the lab, the customers and the microbiologists are not overly resistant to the technology. In fact, they are quite happy that they don't have to look at all of these kind of negative plates and just use their expertise for the positive and the most difficult plates.
And can you give us a little bit more color on the APAS revenue model and how that works?
Yeah, so it's a CapEx model. We do have leasing models available as well. So it retails for $300,000 US, and then there's an annual software license that's associated with that. When we establish our channel partners, like we've done with Beckman in Europe, and we will do in the US, they'll take a margin, a distribution margin, and obviously there's COGS that are associated with that as well. Because LBT are pioneers and developers of the software, we get a high percentage of the royalty. There's an annual software license that comes directly to LBT.
And these JV partners, are they like 50-50 partners? Do they share 50% of the revenue?
Yeah, they do, and the costs, I should say, as well. So we've been in the joint venture now for a bit over 7 years, and so they've been part of the development, and they will share part of the revenue as we see that coming through as sales start to materialize.
And there's a question here: if FDA is approved and a US distributor is struck, a distribution deal is struck, how will this affect the potential sales moving forward?
Yeah, well, look, the US market is going through a bit of a wave with the Delta variant, similar to what we're happening in Australia. So we've seen a bit of a contraction in terms of getting access in front of our customers, and we see that as a near-term challenge, probably over the next kind of 12 months. I think what I would say is that the particular partner that we will announce has a really sizable sales organization. They're well established, and it's a household name in a similar way that perhaps Beckman Coulter are a household name. So basically the reach will be far beyond what we would be able to do otherwise ourselves. And even with the challenges of COVID, we're optimistic that we will have a better chance of getting in front of customers with this distributor appointed.